All guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 brought to us by our beer of choice, official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. I'm talking about Johnny Cuba, European roots with a Caribbean soul. Start your evening. Come on, let's get after it. Big sports night tonight. Heat Celtics, a refreshing German lager in a can. You pick up a six-pack at your local Sedano's, Presidente, Winn-Dixie. I love you guys. Send me the videos. You're trying Johnny Cuba for the first time. You tell me how delicious it is. I'm posting it on the Instagram. And, of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here is our pal, mornings, CBS Sports Radio, Damon Amendolara. Everybody knows he was doing Miami radio for a while, so he knows what's going on down here. DA, love having you on the show. I love being able to see you here. It's been my favorite part of doing ZASLOW Show 2.0, where, I say this every time I get a guest on for the first time on this version. It's my favorite part of doing the show like this. It's so much easier to see people, but you've been doing this like forever. I'm so behind the eight ball, right?
Well, no, it's great to see you too, Zaz, and always fun to jump on with you. But yeah, this is the way of the world now, to have cameras everywhere to catch all of our idiosyncrasies. It's always a little paranoid, makes me paranoid, because I'm like, is the camera on right now? Or we're coming back from commercial break? It's like thinking that all your microphone's always on. You really got to be on point when you know that the cameras are always rolling.
I used to, not that, look, people can only see me from like the shoulders up, but for you, you're in studio, people can probably see, everything that you and your crew have going on. So different from back in the day. You probably used to come in the studio at 560 WQAM, looking the way I used to, like a schlub, and now you got to doll yourself up a little bit.
And the one thing that our listeners love is watching us eat. We're the morning shows, so we're always eating breakfast, but sometimes we eat lunch during breakfast hours or dinner during breakfast hours. So everyone's always so interested in what we're eating, how much we're eating, and what time that we are eating, that you got to scarf it. You got to shovel it during commercial breaks at 7:45 in the morning in a 5-minute segment. So yeah, the eyes are on you.
Yeah, it's funny. And again, of course, DA, every morning, 6 to 10, CBS Sports Radio. Very familiar, of course, with the Miami scene. So let me start asking you. I want to talk a lot of football with you, all right? But, I thought after the Dolphins lost to the Bills, and I know everybody was giving the Dolphins credit. Oh, they hung around, third-string quarterback. And that's true. They played really hard, all right? They showed a lot of heart that game. But for me, DA, and I think this was proven to be true this weekend with the Bills losing to the Bengals, to me, that Dolphins loss in Buffalo, that raised a bunch of red flags for Buffalo. I thought it was more about not the Dolphins almost winning that game. I thought it was about the Bills almost losing that game. And I think I was proven right this past weekend.
That was the right read. And I kind of felt the same way. I had actually gone up to Buffalo for that Vikings collapse. They led by 17 points, late second half. Josh Allen throws 2 red zone interceptions, end zone interceptions, fumbles at the goal line. They lose an OT. And I walked out of that stadium going, that's another tragic loss for this Bills team. Whether it was that game last year, the 13 seconds of the divisional round, losing to the Chiefs the way that they did. The Hail Murray was a painful loss. They have all of these kind of stacked up. They lost a lead against the Texans in the wild card round a couple of years ago. And then when they played the way that they did against the Dolphins, I said the same thing. They're blowing them out at 17-0 early, and you're like, the route is on. And what happened? Josh Allen mistakes, special teams blunders, defensive breakdowns, and at the end of the game, if it wasn't for the Dolphins struggling to even get plays called, the Bills nearly lost to Skylar Thompson. And I came out of that game going, the same stuff that has kind of dragged the Bills down in recent years is happening again. And I thought, man, the Bengals, they didn't look good against the Ravens, but I think a lot of that had to do with the bad matchup for them. The Ravens defense is excellent. It's fast. It knows them very well. I thought the Bengals not playing well against the Ravens wasn't indicative that the Bengals weren't good. It was just that's a bad matchup. So I really liked the Bengals last week. I picked them on the show. And obviously, as we're talking about, it bore out. But there's been too many moments where the Bills now have to prove they can do it before you should believe that they're going to do it.
It's quite possible. Look, there were some bad teams this year that we thought would have been good. Teams like Raiders, teams like the Broncos. But based on what we know now, the Bills, maybe the most disappointing team this year. Would you agree with that?
I would still say the Broncos are. I didn't believe in the Raiders. I believed in the Broncos. I thought the Broncos had a good enough defense. They had good enough skill position guys that, Russell Wilson would kind of piece it all together, and their season was over in October. So that to me is the biggest kablooey. At least the Bills made the playoffs, won a playoff game, won the division. But in terms of expectations that the Bills yet again did not live up to, this is minimum 2 years in a row, maybe 3 years in a row, where you thought they could win the Super Bowl or should win the Super Bowl and fell short of the AFC Championship game. I mean, think about this. Week 1, they go to LA and they pound the defending Super Bowl champs on a night where the Rams hung the banners. The next week, they demolished the Titans 41-7. The Titans were last year's 1 seed in the AFC. Early on, the Bills had then gone to Arrowhead and won as well. Midway through October, they were the best team in football, seemingly. And here we are now. Did the Damar Hamlin situation emotionally exhaust them? It's possible. They went through 2 blizzards, a home game that was pushed to Detroit, a blizzard that killed 40 people in Western New York. I mean, it is possible by the time they got to the end here last weekend, they didn't have much left. At the same time, the way that they played down the stretch felt like ways that they played before this season in big spots. And now I just think that the Bills are the ultimate tease. After this year saying they're the Super Bowl favorite, you can't ever go into a season until they win one and call them the Super Bowl favorite again. They have to prove they can actually do it and deserve that title.
Have you been a Josh Allen guy? And if you have been, do you think less of him now?
I was slow on Josh Allen early. I did not like the way he ended his career at Wyoming. I know that people said, well, he didn't have great talent at Wyoming. His seniors had left, and that was part of it. But I didn't like the way that he played against the Power 5 competition that final season at Wyoming. Then rookie season, I saw a lot of the same problems. And I said, see, this guy's not going to make it. And lo and behold, I mean, by this year, he has proven to be an elite QB. So I think it's unfair in a world of the Derek Carrs and the Teddy Bridgewaters and, the Carson Wentzes that keep getting starting jobs to really crack too badly on Josh Allen. He's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He's certainly a top 10. So I can't dig on him too much, but Sunday was a bad day for Josh Allen, and there were too many of those. The loss against the Jets this year is inexcusable. The collapse against the Vikings inexcusable. There was a couple of moments this year where the Bills really did not look right, and a lot of that had to do with Josh Allen. Maybe the throwing elbow was a problem, but Josh, what we saw, unfortunately, he's just not Mahomes or Burrow, and he might never be that. And that might be okay because there can only be one Burrow and one Mahomes, but in the AFC, it's pretty evident that he is a tier below those guys.
Sunday was also a really bad day for Dak Prescott. I'll ask you the same question. Do you think less of Dak Prescott now?
Yes, because I think that Josh Allen still does enough that wows you, that other guys can't do, that gets you back into games quickly or can completely shatter an opposing defense. I mean, what he did against the Patriots last year, the wild card round, I mean, he just dropped atomic bombs on the Patriots all night long. What he did, down the stretch, that was the Bills' offense. It was feast or famine. But when he hit big. Dak doesn't do anything that makes you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe he can do that. He was great against the Buccaneers. But it wasn't like that was a superhuman performance. It was a great night for a good quarterback. Against better defenses, the Bucs were a sub-500 team. Against better teams in the playoffs, Dak's never going to be a top 5 QB in the NFL. So, part of Sunday was the reality that Dak's not there and Dak's not going to get there. He's 30 years old now. You don't usually ascend to the next level 7 years into your NFL career. So Dak is just going to be one of these guys that's the 10th to 12th best quarterback in the NFL, which is fine. You can make the playoffs with him, maybe win a playoff game, but he's never going to be the reason that you win a Super Bowl. You'd have to be perfect all around him to do that.
Can you explain what we're seeing with Brock Purdy here? How much, the first game that he got in was The game against the Dolphins, which was their second consecutive. No, that was the game that snapped the Dolphins' 5-game win streak. Brock Purdy came in the first quarter. He was good, and he hasn't lost since. How much of it is, wow, this kid can play, compared to, he's got a pretty good coach. He's in a really good system, and he's got a lot of big-time weapons around him.
I think that's primarily it. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo did what Brock Purdy is doing, maybe to a slightly lesser degree, but did it all season long. Same coach, same weapons, same defense supporting him. So, there's part of this where maybe there's another player even besides Brock Purdy that could do exactly this. There probably is. But you're reminded that a guy can have weapons, he can have great coaching, he can have a great defense, but there still has to be something internally about him to keep a calm, a composure, and a cool and execute. And Purdy did that. There was a couple of moments in Sunday's game where I was like, this is not nearly as easy as it has been for Brock Purdy. Let's see how he handles it. Could frustration settle in? Could nerves and jitters settle in? Could just poor decision-making settle in? And he never really did that. He wasn't dynamic, but when it was a one-score game or a tie ball game, he didn't give the game away. He threw low. He threw wide of the line of scrimmage so that you couldn't be knocked down or picked off. He didn't put the ball in bad spots. And when a guy was open, like George Kittle, it was a great catch by Kittle, but he was able to hit him. So I think there is something about Purdy's composure. And I had Steve Weich of the NFL Network on the show this morning. And he told me he spoke to Mike McGlinchey, offensive lineman for the Niners, and about the Purdy thing. And he said, look, nobody thought that Brock Purdy was going to be the starting quarterback by the end of the season, but there were 4 quarterbacks in training camp, and he had to win a spot on the roster. And he did that because when he came in camp and came in preseason games, he absolutely had a command of the moment, and he did not seem like he was an easily rattled rookie. And so there is something internally within Purdy that he is expressing now on the football field that goes beyond just having a great situation. But the great situation is why he's here playing in the championship game.
Do they have to win the NFC Championship game for him to be the guy next year, or is he already the guy?
I think at the moment, it's a competition between him and Trey Lance, and you probably have to have Lance win the job. I think Purdy kind of comes in as the incumbent, and Lance has to take it from him. I think if he wins a Super Bowl, I don't think it's even a quarterback competition next year. I'm reminded of the Giants in 1991. Phil Simms led them to 10-1, and Simms was the guy, the franchise guy. Hostetler comes in, wins a Super Bowl with them, and they didn't feel comfortable just handing the job back to Phil Simms. The locker room had just won a Super Bowl with Hostetler, so they made them battle it out in training camp. Now, ultimately, they decided on Haas. Might have been a mistake. But there was a feeling there, and that was Ray Handley. It was not Parcells anymore. But there was a feeling there that, look, the guy just won a Super Bowl. We can't just not give him the job again. You have to reward that some way. So I don't think we're there yet with Purdy that he's automatically the guy in 2023. But I think if he wins 2 more games, it becomes that. And even if he loses this weekend, it becomes he's got an equal shot to win this job next year.
So what was the difference then with the Eagles? Was it that Carson Wentz was playing at an MVP level before he got hurt and Nick Foles won it?
Yeah, I think that Foles run for everybody in Philadelphia felt a little temporary, which it was, and B, they really felt like Wentz was the franchise guy because he was an MVP that season.
Yeah.
So I think they assumed they would have done the same thing with Carson Wentz. Now we see in retrospect that's probably wrong, but it's not like Trey Lance and not Garoppolo, he won't be back. It's not like Trey Lance had an MVP season that you said, well, see, he would be doing the same exact thing. He's a complete unknown, which is why you'd have to give Purdy a chance to win that job.
The 4 teams remaining here, DA, rank them based on level of trust going into this weekend.
I trust the Chiefs would be 1, except for Patrick Mahomes' injury. So I can't put them at 1 because if he's 60% of Patrick Mahomes, that's not the same as having 100% of Patrick Mahomes. trust in a game well played, probably the Eagles. And I say that because they're a complete team. And Saturday night showed that Jalen Hurts is ready for bright lights, big stage after the injury. I don't think you saw any ill effects of the injury. And for a playoff moment where the pressure was on the Eagles against a division foe, he blew them out of the water. So my trust is, even though I don't know if the Eagles will win, I trust that you'll get a good Eagles team. I'm not convinced you'll see a good Brock Purdy, which would hurt the Niners' chances, even though the rest of that team is great.
He's got to have a bad game eventually.
Got to have a bad game, or even if he had the game he had last week, that's probably good enough to lose to the Eagles. Yeah. Good enough to beat the Cowboys. I don't trust Mahomes' injury. I don't think you're going to see a great Mahomes. So I'd probably put Bengals 2 because I think the Bengals have proven they understand how to win big games now, and they follow their leader. And Burrow is unflappable. And I know we're going to get a good Joe Burrow on Sunday. It just depends on whether that defense can slow down whatever percentage Mahomes is.
If the league had their choice, best case scenario for the Super Bowl, what do they want?
Chiefs, Eagles. They had Chiefs Niners a couple of years ago. They've already done that. NFL usually likes to get other fan bases involved, spread the wealth a little bit. San Francisco is a huge market, but Philly is a massive market as well. So you get a crazy Philly fan base, a crazy Philly media market, and you get Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I think they're okay, honestly, with any of the permutations, the 4 permutations. The Bengals with Joe Burrow have now become really interesting television. Burrow is compelling, but the Bengals still lack the star power that the NFL, I think, prefers. Mahomes is the star. The Chiefs are the offense. And I think that moves the needle. And, it would be kind of Mahomes going for immortality. If you win 2 Super Bowls, you've gone to 3. I think that puts him at a different level historically already. So I think they would opt for the Chiefs.
Eagles, you get all the Andy Reid stuff.
Oh, that's a good point, too. I hadn't thought about that. That's true. An Andy Reid revenge game? Yeah, Chiefs-Eagles is probably, the number 1 matchup.
That's juicy. Finally here, DA, Dolphins off season. What do you do about the quarterback situation? Let's assume Tua is good to go. The Dolphins said last week, the doctors have told them there's no reason to believe that he won't be able to play and that he's not any more concussion prone than anybody else. So let's say Tua is good to go. What do you do, though? Do you bring someone in?
It's got to be Tua as your starting quarterback, but you have to have a veteran backup that you feel like if you had to go to him, the season's not going to get tanked. I don't like the Tom Brady idea. To me, Brady already showed a regression this season. We saw Brady, the way that he performed in the wild card round. Granted, there were problems coaching-wise, schematically with the Buccaneers, but I think if you're the Dolphins, you have a good sample size that when you have a healthy Tua, it's a dynamic offense. He can pull the trigger. He can work the offense. They're a great team, a great offense with him. If you have a clean bill of health from Tua, he should be your guy next season. The question is not, do you need to bring in Tom Brady for a year? It's, do you need a replacement permanently for Tua because you don't trust his health? Now, that's a different discussion. If you just go like, look, he's been injured every single season. We just don't think we ever get 17 games out of him. Fine, now you're looking for a permanent solution. But a temporary one, like a Tom Brady, I'm not into. I think you run it back with Tua and you see if you can get 17 games out of him, because when you had 8 or 9 out of him this year, the offense was great.
Excellent job, DA. Tell everybody how they can catch you.
Yeah, we're on mornings on CBS Sports Radio. So if you're outside of a normal CBS Sports affiliate, the Odyssey app is great. It's free. It has podcasts of all of our shows as well, so you can listen on demand, listen live as well, and everything across our Odyssey network. So Odyssey is the free app. You can check us out every single day.
Thanks, DA. I appreciate it, man. Really great job.
Anytime, Zaz.